This is Shaw Cable 10, your community channel.
Welcome to Program Pride. My name is Todd Janes, and this is the first show of the new year. Starting the show off with a bang, we will be seeing Provincetown through the eyes of our Calgary correspondents, Sue and Sue. We will also have an interview with Sherry McKibbon, president of the Alberta New Democrats and a candidate in Edmonton Norwood in the upcoming election. As well, we have a conversation with the Flirtations from this year's Edmonton Folk Music Festival. And to round the show off, Lenore is back with a commentary on advocacy and activism. Stay tuned. This is Program Pride. And welcome back to Program Pride. My name is Todd Janes, and we're sitting in Provincetown on location in Edmonton today, where I'm talking to Sherry McKibbon.
Good morning, Todd.
Good morning. For those of you who do not know Sherry, she's the president of the Alberta New Democratic Party, and she's also the newly nominated candidate for the Edmonton Norwood constituency. Welcome to Program Pride.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. We've been trying to get local Edmonton people for a while. I'd like to start off with the fact that this isn't your first jaunt into politics.
No, it isn't my first jaunt into politics. In fact, it's my third campaign. And this campaign, like my first campaign, looks to be a winter campaign. And so I'm busy gathering the gear that you need for a winter campaign.
Mittens.
Scarves, mitts, yes,
Volunteers.
Exactly. Warm clothes, warm boots, volunteers, all of that. That's right.
Now, you served as almost a full term for Ward 5 in Edmonton.
No, Ward 3, Northeast Edmonton.
Ward 3, sorry,
Yeah.
as a city councillor.
That's right.
Or at that time an alderman.
That's right.
And
happily they changed it to councillor right after the next election.
Which is a good choice.
Yes.
Now, you were one of two openly gay or lesbian elected officials at City Council, a first for Edmonton.
I think perhaps even a Canadian history setter, right? As far as I know, I was and still am the highest elected openly lesbian in the country.
Mm-hmm. How did that change people's perceptions? Or do you think I mean, often we hear this story as gay and lesbian and bisexual people who may or may not think about politics, and we always hear the story of Sen Robinson when he considered coming out, and they said, oh, it's political suicide. Yet the next time in the election, he did better than ever before.
Well, I think in that first campaign we went through a long conversation about how we should approach the issue of sexual orientation. And you know, it was one of those kind of constant debates. Although I certainly wasn't closeted at the time, and everybody knew that I was in a lesbian relationship. I mean, that was kind of open information. At no point in time during that campaign did the media make any statements about that. And again, everybody knew, and that was very, very clear. And so it kind of hit the newspaper the day after I was elected, because in my thank you speech, I thanked my partner Dorothy, and so at that point the media picked it up, and not prior to that. How does that change? I don't know the answer to that, Todd, because you know I am who I am, and I suppose I think that people think of me as, or would have thought of me as kind of a radical feminist lesbian who's kind of a freak, and of course I'm not that way. You know, I make a very strong point of looking like everybody's politician, if you like, as not creating barriers in terms of communication with people, and so I think that sometimes takes people aback. And
But
And in
are
terms
you
of
everyone's
No, of
politician?
course not.
like,
But once you're there and
representing a collective group.
That's right. And as a representative of Northeast Edmonton, I represent the whole population. And so, in a way, you need to be able to converse and relate with everybody. And you also need everybody to vote for you. You need everybody on your side. So in a way, although you're not everybody's politician, obviously, I'm a New Democrat, and that means I believe in all kinds of things that this conservative government doesn't believe in. But that, it's part and parcel of who I am, which relates to sexual orientation, I suppose.
Well, I'd like to talk about that for a little bit because I'd like to talk about linkages and people's voices who aren't heard, especially by this current government. And we seem to hear that a lot, but there doesn't seem to be that critical mass yet that can push
No,
that
that's
ahead.
right, and I think that's one of the real failings of the current Liberal opposition that we have in this province, is that they have not been able to be an effective or to create an effective opposition. And of course, part of the reason they were not able is because their agenda was the same as the Conservative agenda. They wanted to go into government. They wanted to create the same kind of cutbacks that this Conservative government created. And so when they found themselves in opposition, they didn't know what to do.
Is it part of they wanted to be everyone's politician too? I mean, they have quite a diverse group of people who in the past may have been considered New Democrats or left of center, if we can even use those terms anymore. Then they have some real fiscal conservatives as well in that group. It's quite a large spectrum.
Most importantly, I think under Decor they campaigned on a fiscally conservative campaign, and they wanted to move in that direction as well. And so they had a lot of problems, and I don't think they've overcome those problems. And if we want an opposition in this province that is going to be able to mobilize against what the Klein government stands for, it has to be the New Democrats. It has to be the people who are in the New Democrat Party and are running, who want a different kind of vision for Alberta, who want a vision where in fact those other voices are heard and understood and included, who want a province where we care about what happens with people, where we care about what happens with people with mental health problems, with people who are poor, where we really want to create employment and employment for everybody.
And talking about employment, one of the things that the Klein Tories have done, I mean, we have the lowest working wage in Canada. We're tied with Newfoundland right now. And more because of downsizing or reorganization, more and more people are working at part-time jobs and making minimum wage.
More and more people falling below the poverty line. The rate of children living in poverty, the number of children living in poverty is going up in this province. In this province, a rich province with a surplus, more and more children, more and more families, in fact, two-parent working families even living in poverty. It is unforgivable that any Albertans have to struggle in that way just to pay basic necessities.
I find
many years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, before this Klein government was elected, I participated in a minimum wage workshop sponsored by the Labour Council and social planning people, and then we looked at the impact of raising a minimum wage and the need to doing that. Here we are 3 or 4 years down the road and still no change in this province.
I'd like to switch a little bit for a second. I'm wondering, I've thought for a long time that often, in some ways, gay, lesbian, and bisexual people are often a lot more empathetic to the needs of other disadvantaged people. I'm wondering, how do you feel about that? Do you think that's a possibility as well?
Yes. Well, I think as a group of people who are ourselves disadvantaged in some way, and in some way, of course, we can also pass if you want to use that word, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are lots of people who are closeted, and what's important about being out and being clear about sexual orientation is the statement that there are lots of us out there, and that we take part in all kinds of ways in our lives and in doing things. Sexual orientation is, in a way, for me at least, incidental to that. I'm many other things. That's only one piece of me. Most importantly, I'm a social worker who's very committed to a social equity agenda, to assuring that all people are included. The fact that I experience discrimination both as a woman, and I think probably as a woman first, and as a woman who's been in lesbian relationships second, means I understand that better. But I'm also a woman with a person with some resources and a background of some resources, and so I don't experience poverty, and I have, that's not been part of what has been my experience, and I only experience that because I work with people who are poor and understand from what they tell me about that experience. So, I mean, I share disadvantage in some ways, and in some ways I don't.
Do you think there's hope for our province? I mean, we keep hearing that the Tories are still high in the polls.
I think the Conservatives are going to form the next government, and the question is who's going to be the opposition.
But that was the battlefield last time around, too.
No, the battlefield last time around was that the Liberals were hoping to form the government. And they're not going to form the government. They didn't form the government last time. They're not going to this time. This time it is. So this time we need to look at it as opposition, and it must be the New Democrats, because they're the ones that can effectively speak to all of the issues.
Do you think there's going to be more strategic election planning this time around? In that
it's a different campaign. Yeah. I cannot speak to the Liberals in terms of what they're going to do. I think that they're having some difficulty figuring that out. I know our statements are that we need to be in that house. Albertans need us, and I really think that's very clear, that if we are going to speak to the issues that the cutbacks of the Klein government have created, it has to be the New Democrats. The Liberals have not done that.
Okay. We're almost out of time. I'd like the last word to go to you, and I'd like, if possible, for you to share something. We're all across Alberta. I'd like you maybe to share something with all of the Albertans about the next election, about advocacy.
Well, first of all, I'd like to encourage everybody to get involved and to be part of this election, and to participate, to come out, to support candidates. I think it's particularly important that those of us in the lesbian, gay, bisexual community participate in the election. And there's always a tendency, I think, for people to think politics doesn't affect them. It does. Politics are the sphere where we decide how we're going to spend our resources. That's the forum in which that debate takes place. It's important that everybody participate. As a politician, I am only as effective as all of the people who work with me. One of the things that being a politician always is for me is a humbling experience, because I'm struck by people coming and supporting me and participating in the process. Very important for us all to do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Todd.
And that was Sherry McKibbon, provincial president of the Alberta New Democrats and candidate for Edmonton Norwood in the upcoming election. Up next, we have an interview with the Flirtations from this summer's Edmonton Folk Festival. Hello and welcome. We're here at the Edmonton Folk Festival, and it's not raining for 1 year.
I just felt something.
That wasn't rain, that was something else. And we're here with the Flirtations, and maybe that's why the weather is so great. Of course. You guys just performed a few minutes ago, and you've been signing autographs for the last 20.
Oh,
at least.
Are you so sore?
So this is your very first time at the Edmonton Folk Festival?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
How we doing?
We were supposed to be here last year, but we walked. We were supposed to be here last year, but they didn't buy us airplane tickets. We walked the whole way.
You were bicycling and
no.
There was an accident.
There was an accident.
But you're fully recovered?
Well.
Can you snap and everything?
Yep.
So?
Yep, I can snap.
And at that time, the Flirtations were 4 men.
No, we were 3 men and Suede.
You were with the group at that time as well.
Yes, I was.
So how has that changed the dynamics of the group since you've come to the Flirtations?
Ooh.
Do you have a larger female following now, or is it?
I don't know. That would be hard to judge. I think the Flirts have always had great appeal to the women's community.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, we've been really blessed, actually. Our mailing list has always been about 60% women, and that's something we've always been really grateful for. We've been produced by typically women's music producers, historically speaking, but actually adding Suede to the group has really been a wonderful coming together of men's and women's community visibly on stage, which I think is important.
Why do you think you have such a large women's following? Is it the message in your music? Is it just you're such a dynamic performing group? Or?
I think that the Flirts have always had such a strong message about inclusiveness and empowerment and permission for all of us to be exactly who we are. But that certainly plugs right into all of feminist and lesbian and women's community ideals and foundations. So it's really wonderful to be able to go to a show, and especially when the Flirts were all men, to go to a show with all men on stage, clearly getting it about our struggles. What a pleasure! What a gift!
So, will you ever do the Michigan Music Festival?
I kind of doubt it. I don't know. Although we made, when the Flirts asked me to join about a year ago, we made the official announcement at the Northampton Lesbian Festival, where I was performing, and
they joined you on stage?
I brought them up on stage in my set, and we made the official announcement that I had accepted the glorious offer. And that was the first time ever that men had performed on stage at a women's festival, so it was very historical.
We were a little nervous.
I loved it.
So you two were officially honorary lesbians at that point or something?
Oh, long before that.
Sounds like a story there.
Oh, several, I'm sure. We have no time for that.
So, your new album, and I have it here hidden in the grass somewhere.
Is that our new album?
The Flirtations 3. Notice, can we get a shot of this, too? Is that part of what your music is about? Enabling people to think and question some of their thoughts?
Absolutely, yeah. We give a lot of thought to every song that we sing, and in some way or another, every song that we sing has some telling reason behind it that has to do with some thought about how the world might become a better place. And so, yes, we definitely challenge our audience to think and also to feel, I think.
You confront a lot of issues in your music and just by being on stage, too. I mean, you're dealing with homophobia, with racism, with things about abuse and gay bashing and things like that. Are there linkages there? I mean, do you really think there are linkages between racism and homophobia and sexism? Is there a commonality that can be found in all those different areas?
I would say certainly they're all based in a very similar, if not the same, sort of fear. It seems that they're all based in a sort of a fear that tends to be about, I'm going to be threatened because somehow you're going to take something away from me because you're different.
Today we're talking to Len Paoletti from Provincetown, known a lot surrounded by P-Town.
Mm-hmm.
So Len, how long have you been here?
I've actually lived in Provincetown for about 20 years. It's been a little bit longer than that, but I don't like to mention that because I see people doing mathematics. How old is he? So 20 years is close enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what brought you here?
I used to visit Provincetown as a tourist like everybody else, and one time I came down here and I stayed at a little guest house. The owner said to me, "It's for sale. Do you know anybody that wants to buy it?" And I said, no. But after sitting on the beach for 3 days, I said, gee, wouldn't this be fun? So I went home and told my father. He said, you're out of your mind, but if you want to do it, I'll loan you the money for the down payment. So I bought a guest house. Of course, I've never been back to the beach since. The other reason I came here was because I thought I was going to develop my talent to become an artist, and I figured there was lots of time in the winter to paint. And I did. I've done a lot of painting of ceilings and walls and floors, and occasionally I get to do a painting. But that's basically why I came to Provincetown. People who visit Provincetown basically do come from all over the world. The vast majority come from within a day's drive, and that is New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. And I would say that would probably account for like maybe 60 to 70% of the business. There's also a good amount that do fly in from California and Texas and Michigan and Ohio. But we do get people now from Europe. In the past year, 2 years actually, we've begun to see quite a rise in the European clientele. And it's rare now that I don't have at least 1 or 2 rooms in from England or Germany or Italy. Okay. We have also had people in, last year we had a fellow in from Hong Kong, South Africa, Australia. There's generally 1 or 2 during the summer that'll be in from Australia. So it is beginning to be known definitely as a worldwide resort destination for gay people.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a wonderful place to be. We've just felt the freedom from square one.
That's basically why gay people come here, because, as you said, they do feel a freedom here that is not to be found even in many of the other gay resorts now. And that's one reason gay people come here, because they can express their sexuality, they can be open, they can walk down the street hand in hand, they can kiss in a restaurant, they can sit on a beach that is predominantly gay. And for once in your life, when you're here, you're in the majority. Mm-hmm. You go to Key West, you're not in the majority. Mm-hmm. But in Provincetown, especially from mid-June to mid-September, it is definitely a gay visibility and a gay resort.
Right.
I've seen a marked increase in the amount of gay women coming to Provincetown. July and August is still predominantly gay men, but September and October and June and May, you'll probably see a higher percentage of gay women than you would see of gay men. For the straight, well, I mean for everybody, there are sort of, as I mentioned earlier, whale watching, which is a big thing to do. There's beautiful, beautiful beaches here. And we have these paved bike paths all through the sand dunes, which is a lot of fun for many people. There's great shops. I mean, you can find a lot of stuff here that you're not going to find until maybe next year elsewhere, because a lot of gay men are the buyers for these shops, and they want to be on the current edge of what's happening. There's superb restaurants. There's also crappy restaurants, but there's some really good restaurants, that'll rate 3 or 4 stars in a number of guides. And there's the clubs. Not so much for the straight community now, for the clubs. There's a couple of them. But as far as the gay community, there's some of the best gay entertainment happening anywhere in the world in this town. I mean, you have the likes of Jimmy James, who's here all summer. Suzanne Westenhofer, who plays here generally for the month of August, and she's absolutely hysterical. Mm-hmm. Sherry McKibbon, who's not gay, but does a great show. She's a singer. Kate Clinton lives in town, and she usually performs once or twice during the course of the summer. And, I don't know, Michelle Ballin is here. Judy Gold is here at the moment.
Taylor Dane's here tonight.
Taylor Dane's here tonight. You do have a number of big, I shouldn't say Hollywood, but like Jennifer Holliday played the town a couple of weeks ago. So you do get name acts coming to Provincetown now. Mm-hmm. You've seen an upswing in the past few years in the change in the shops, so there's much more upscale quality in the shops, and as a result, the town is beginning to attract a more upscale clientele. That's not to say there isn't still a moderate and even inexpensive way to visit Provincetown, but there's definitely a rise in the consumer level here in town. Things in between that are interests for gay people that you're not going to find anywhere else. And one of the things is the tea dance. Tea dance at the Belt Strip is phenomenal. I mean, you go there and there'll be like anywhere from, on a slow day, there'll only be maybe like 200 people, but on a holiday weekend, there'll be 2,000 gay people out on this deck just having a great time. You go to the gay beach, and it's just miles and miles of lesbians and gay men, and they're just out there having a pleasant time, not concerned about what's happening. Mm-hmm. And the other nice thing is just being able to walk downtown, holding hands. Mm-hmm. And one of the best things to do in Provincetown is just to people watch. Mm-hmm. And watch people enjoying themselves, being gay, and being comfortable being gay. They may have to go home and go into the closet, but for that few days or a week that they're here, they are open, and they can enjoy it.
I
I was talking to a young gay man the other day, and he was saying that his partner would like for them to get married, but he himself doesn't want to fight for the right to do this. His reaction is, you know, if it's going to happen, it just will, and I don't want to do anything to make sure it does happen. I don't want to sign petitions and go to rallies. And his reaction really surprised me. And I thought to myself, but nothing ever changes on its own. As gays and lesbians, we've never been handed our human rights. We have to fight for them. I believe in activism. Activism to me means acting on something. Examples of activism are standing up and saying when something isn't right, participating in marches and rallies and demonstrations, signing petitions, writing to letters of editors in newspapers to express my opinion, writing to politicians to express my opinion or my appreciation, coming out, using everyday discussions to interject the realities of gays and lesbians' lives and the fact that we lack basic civil rights in this province, voting, encouraging other people to vote, and working for a political party that has a pro-feminist, pro-choice agenda, that believes in eradicating poverty, racism, and sexism, that believes in a social safety net that includes adequately funded health care and education and welfare with dignity. Why I'm active is because, quite simply, I want to change the world. I want to live in a world where everyone has enough, where everyone is treated with dignity and respect, where I, as a lesbian, have basic human rights and am not lied about and hated. I also am active because changing the world is overwhelming, and being active helps me feel like I'm making a difference. It enriches my life. It connects me to my community. And it gives me a sense of shared history with gays and lesbians who've come before me, who've paved the way for me. And I'm active because there's still much to be done to further our human rights, but also to protect precious ground that's already been gained. You know, as the provincial election nears, I think it's absolutely critical that we fight the right-wing, Christian-based family values, pro-business, anti-homosexual, anti-immigrant, anti-social program agenda. And in order to do this, I think that we need to link oppressions and recognize that when one group of people in our society lack basic human rights, that all of our human rights are weakened. As gays and lesbians, I feel that it's important that we fight to stop poor bashing and racism and sexism, because destructive, horrible lies are told about these people the same way that they're told about us. And the source of these lies are the same, the conservative agenda. So as the provincial election nears, I think it's absolutely important that we all become active in our communities in whatever way is possible for us. Start by talking to your political candidates. Ask them how their party voted in the last federal bill to include sexual orientation into the Charter of Human Rights. And ask them if they supported this provincial government's appeal to deny us rights under the Individual Rights Protection Act. And ask them how they will personally ensure that we get rights in this province. And ask them how they feel about the deep cuts to health, education, and the immoral way that people on welfare are treated in this province. And then actively work towards the political party that believes in us and believes that we deserve to have human rights. And talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your co-workers about these issues, talk in church, at synagogue, and at the hockey rink. You know, in the United States, Anita Hill galvanized and politicized women in that country, and it's their activism that's considered to be part of why Bush was outed and Clinton was voted in. And it was the gay and lesbian vote in the United States that had a huge impact on his victory. As marginalized people, we are at a disadvantage, but together, aligned, united, we can provide a powerful voting bloc in this province. So get active. Every little bit helps.